Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zimbabwe is the most miserable country on earth. Frankly, this is not surprising at all. We have seen it coming. Ever since the country's independence in 1980, we have been marching down this path. Things have been getting progressively worse and worse and worse. This is not our it's not our destiny. We don't have to go down this road. And yet here we are.
For our next story, let's talk about misery. They say misery loves company, and these days miserable countries have lots of company. The distress of some is off the charts, but just enough to quantify. We're talking about the misery index. It has analyzed 157 countries and ranked them in order of how miserable they are. Zimbabwe has topped the list. It's a country in Africa home to about 16 million people. It has topped this list for 3 straight years now. Where does India stand? At number 103. And how is this list created? What can countries learn from it? Our next report tells you.
Misery finds most company in Zimbabwe. This African nation is home to about 16 million people, and it has been named the world's most miserable country. But we aren't saying this. The misery index is. It is formally called Hankey's Annual Misery Index. How does it work? It's an economic index. This index analyzes 157 countries, then gives a score to each of them. This score is based on unemployment, inflation, bank lending rates, and percentage change in GDP. This year's index has now been released, and top of this honor roll is Zimbabwe. The index blames the country's political turmoil for this. It says that Zimbabwe is mired in corruption. This has only aggravated a deepening economic crisis, and its troubles don't end there. Violence is rampant and widespread.
This is the reality that we cannot run away from. I think for the last 44 years, we have known that we're going down the wrong route. And yet, alas, we've done very little about it. Here is Professor Lumumba talking about the very issue of failing to do the right thing.
Idiots who don't want to participate in the affairs of their nation, they think things will just work in and of themselves. Then they are tribalists. And these tribalists, they think that they are only safe with people who are from their tribe. And tribe can mean people from the same culture, same language, or same culture. Then they are citizens. These are individuals who are responsible and know that when you want to be served, you must give those who have the desire and the intellectual capacity to serve you. In many societies, it is only a small percentage of people that can be called citizens, not more than 5%. And if a society wants to grow in the right direction, civic education is what will help the idiot and the tribalist to become a citizen.
Truth of the matter is, we have remained in this path of self-destruction because at best we've behaved like tribalists, tribesmen. Our inability to look at the problem is at the heart of Zimbabwe's economic and political mess. Let me say this very clearly. Zimbabwe has started down this path of self-destruction from 1980. In 1980, or before independence, we all believed in one man, one vote. We all believed that everyone has the right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country. That was our starting point. But as the nation moved closer and closer to independence in 1980, Robert Mugabe and his fellow ZANU people realized that they wanted power. And not just power, absolute power. And if they were going to have it and exercise it, they had to jettison the idea that every citizen should be given a meaningful say in the governance of the country. So what we found ourselves in 1980 is with ZANU-PF coming into the first elections, telling people that if ZANU-PF does not win, the Bush war would continue. Of course, we all kissed goodbye to our right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country. The country was given one golden opportunity to end the ZANU-PF dictatorship in 2008 to 2018 during the GNU. Morgan Tsvangirai and his MDC friends failed to implement even one token reform. What is shocking here is that there are millions of people out there, Zimbabweans, who still do not understand what the GNU was all about. That it was the golden opportunity for the country to end this ZANU-PF dictatorship. That has not helped us get out of the mess. That has only deepened our economic and political crisis. If we cannot work out for ourselves what constitutes good governance, no one is going to do it for us. And we have failed to work it out for ourselves. And hence the reason why we are in this mess. Professor Lumumba is correct. There are three lots of types of citizens in the world. The idiot who doesn't care about anything. All he cares about me, myself, and I. Here and now. Then there's the tribesman who doesn't care about the truth, about the facts, whose number one allegiance is to himself, his tribe, and the leader. There is no doubt that one of the reasons why both ZANU-PF and MDC and Triple C have managed to retain their stranglehold on power is because they've counted on the tribesman mentality of our people. In the case of Chamisa, it has become the personality cult mentality. Zimbabwe had the golden opportunity to end the ZANU-PF dictatorship. MDC, Triple C sold out. But instead of people focusing on that failure and moving on to elect leaders who will implement those reforms to end the dictatorship, they got entangled with this tribesman mentality. Our allegiance is to MDC. That's our tribe. To Nelson Chamisa, he is our leader. Even if he has failed, it doesn't matter. He is our leader. Our allegiance is to him. Whereas a citizen looks at the bigger picture. There is no such thing as a tribe, as a political party. What matters is the country, the nation. What is in the best interest of the nation at the end of the day is in the best interest of all the citizens. May suit Chamisa to remain in power, to be worshipped as a demigod. But is that in the interest of the nation? The answer is no. Chamisa and company are the ones who have let the nation down by failing to implement reforms even when they had the golden opportunity to do so. A rational thinking citizen would have said, right, okay, let's get somebody else who will get those reforms implemented. But the tribesman says, no, my allegiance is to Chamisa. Or before him, to Morgan Tsvangirai. And so the nation has become stuck. Because now MDC have been saving ZANU-PF. Whether we like to admit it or not, the truth of the matter is MDC/Triple C has become ZANU-PF Team B in all but name. They've been playing, participating in politics, not to win, but to give the process credibility, always leaving the door open for Team A, ZANU-PF Team A, to win. They got their reward from the few gravy train seats that they've been winning. The tribe's mentality says, no, we still have got to be faithful to the tribe, to the leader. Whereas a more rational citizen would say, no, if MDC leadership now all they care about is the few gravy train seats that they are being offered, this does not serve the nation's interest. We need to change. This is where we've got stuck. It took 20 years, nearly 20 years, for most Zimbabweans to finally admit that Robert Mugabe and his ZANU-PF friends were not the liberation heroes, the ideal liberation heroes that the nation believed they were in 1980. And at that point, the nation made a conscientious effort that they needed democratic change that would deliver the changes that the nation was after. MDC were elected. Their number one task was to implement the democratic reforms that would enable the country to stop ZANU-PF rigging the elections. After 24 years on the political platform, 5 of which in the GNU, MDC, CCC have failed to implement even one reform. A more rational person with a citizen mentality would accept that MDC, CCC guys have failed. But the tribal, the one with the tribalistic mentality, their number one allegiance is to the tribe. In this case, MDC/CCC, to the leaders, Chamisa, who some have now elevated to the position of a demigod, who is untouchable. Every time you criticize Chamisa, some people get hot in the collar. You can't criticize him. Why not? If Chamisa implemented the reforms and he didn't lie about plugging all the vote rigging loopholes, then yes, I'm wrong. And I'll be the first one to say so. But if that is correct, then he must be held to account. They cannot accept that. Three years in a row, Zimbabwe is the most miserable country on earth. It is within our ability to change this around. I think this is what is so tragic about our situation. We are our own worst enemies. Both ZANU-PF and MDC have only taken advantage of our ignorance, naivety, and being so gullible. They've taken advantage of our tribesman mentality. To move from the tribesman to the citizen mentality requires civic education, as Professor Lumumba correctly pointed out. But at the present moment, both ZANU-PF and MDC/CCC are not interested in encouraging or facilitating civic education of the citizen. They are happy with the citizen remaining ignorant and naive. This is something that we, the citizens, have got to do for ourselves. 44 years of rigged elections. Is a long time. in this day and age. It is not rocket science to realize that the electoral process in Zimbabwe is flawed, to accept that reality and stop being so gullible that somebody like Chamisa will tell us that he has plugged all the vote rigging loopholes, when we can see with our own eyes that he's lying. 2028, in my view, is going to be one of the most pivotal years in Zimbabwe's history. If the people participate in their millions in another flawed election because they believe Chamisa's idiotic lie that he can win rigged elections, then the country is in serious trouble. Because by participating, will have given ZANU-PF legitimacy. And so the present political and economic situation will continue. God only knows whether we will last the next 4 years to 2028, much less add another 5 years on top of that. If there was a time when the people of Zimbabwe had to put on their thinking cap, that time is now. We need to talk to the 2 million Chamisa Chete Chete Brigade who participated last year to give ZANU-PF legitimacy, who are certain to participate in 2028 to give ZANU-PF legitimacy. It's up to us to confront them, to talk to them, force them to open their own eyes. If we don't, like it or not, they will drag the whole nation into the abyss. Everyone, including you and me. That is where we are going. Thank you very much for joining me tonight, and have a good evening.